Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, hello. If you are returning, welcome back. Thank you so much for sticking around. I really appreciate you. So today, first of all, my bar cart fell down, like literally right before I was supposed to start filming. And I cried because it scared the crap out of me. So if it looks a little more empty back there, that's why. Today, we are going to be talking about a creator called Young Dumb Honey Bun, who is a reaction channel in the Amberlynn Reid foodie beauty realm of YouTube. My buddy Mika SF, or she just changed her channel name to Mika's Rhetoric, did a video on Young Dumb Honey Bun, and reacted to the video that we're going to be talking about today. And I got so riled up watching it that I literally DM'd her while I was watching it and was like, hey, would you mind if I made a video about this? I am livid. And she was like, yes girl, do it. And I was like, sweet. So I got her blessing to make a video super soon after she posted her own. The particular video we're going to be watching today is Young Dumb Honey Bun reacting to a video about a trans woman in Canada where she just spews some super like right-wingy like rhetoric about trans people. And I was like, why? Like, when have we started doing this? I got just so angry. So yeah, that's why I'm making this video. And my only hypothesis as to why she's doing this is because her channel has been like declining in views recently, and she's trying to find some way to stay relevant, and this video did spark a lot of controversy, so I guess maybe that worked. I don't know. But I feel like it's something to talk about. But while we're on the subject of things that are not cool, such as homophobia and transphobia, you know what else isn't cool? The climate crisis. It's probably just as not cool, just on a different spectrum of uncool. And to learn more about how we can help combat the climate crisis, we're going to hear a word from today's sponsor, Wren. This video is sponsored by Wren. Wren.co is a website that makes it easy to calculate and offset your carbon footprint. By answering a few questions and about your lifestyle, you can find out your carbon footprint and how to reduce it. You can then make a monthly contribution to offset your carbon footprint by funding carbon reduction projects. Once you sign up to make a monthly contribution to offset your carbon footprint, you receive monthly updates from the projects you support. You get to see what your money is spent on, with photos and details on every tree planted, every acre reforested, and every ton of carbon offset. One of the projects I wanted to highlight in this one is the mineral weathering project in Scotland. In short, this project adds crushed basalt to forest land, which speeds up the Earth's natural carbon cycle and sequesters carbon for millions of years. The organization behind this project, the Future Forest Company, was formed to sequester as much carbon as possible in forest land. How this project works is the Future Forest Company purchases and restores degraded land with techniques such as reforestation and peatland reforestation. Future Forest sources basalt fines, which are small particles of basalt rocks, which are spread all over the forest land. And as rain falls onto the land, rainwater reacts with the basalt, raising the pH of the soil system. The rainwater has CO2 dissolved in it in the form of carbonic acid. As the pH of the system increases, more of this carbonic acid turns into carbonates, which then form solid materials like calcium carbonate. Once the carbon is bound up in carbonate materials, it is very stable and will not re-enter the atmosphere for many thousands of years. Additional carbon is also stored in the trees and the soil. I studied abroad in college and was able to go to Scotland during that time, and I still think about the natural beauty that I got to experience there, so preserving that as long as possible is a cause that is very near and dear to my heart. It will take a lot to end the climate crisis, but you can start helping today by learning what you can do on Wren.co. Wren is a simple and effective way to make a difference in the climate crisis. So offset your carbon footprint with Wren. The first 100 people who sign up using the link in the description will have 10 extra trees planted in their name. Thank you so much to Wren for sponsoring this video, and thank you all for interacting with my content so companies like Wren want to keep working with me, because it just means the absolute world to me. And yeah, thank you. Let's get back into the video. And I feel like this is also a really timely topic because this is the first video I have filmed since what happened in Colorado Springs. And as someone who is freshly out of the closet as of June, and has entered into a lesbian relationship in that time, that whole, and as someone who lives in Denver, on top of all of that, the incident in Colorado Springs hit way too close to home for me, and it still affects me to talk about it. That being said, I will have links to some very important GoFundMes and everything down below regarding people involved in that, and my heart just goes out to every queer person in Colorado Springs. Their one safe space in Colorado Springs was taken away from them, and yeah, is really, really crappy. And that being said, I have to believe that Young Dumb Honey Bun, her name's Sarah, I have to believe that Sarah kind of agrees with what she's saying in this video. And while the perpetrator of the Colorado Springs incident is 100% at fault, it's not just him. It is the right-wing conservative spokespeople who continue to dehumanize us, and make us seem like we are less than human, which I guess is what dehumanizing means. And then it's also people like Sarah who take what these people say and just repeat it on their own platforms and continue to perpetuate this message. They're also partially at fault for what happened. And maybe not Sarah specifically, but people like Sarah who continue to make this kind of content and say these kinds of messages on the internet are also at fault for hate crimes like what happened in Colorado Springs. So all of this just felt really timely, and I was planning on making this video before what happened in Colorado Springs happened, but now I feel even more empowered to make it. And yeah, so let's just get into it. So before we get into the actual reaction, I just want to give a little intro to who Young Dumb Honey Bun is, for those of you that don't know. Young Dumb Honey Bun is a Polish-British YouTuber named Sarah, and she started off as a Amberlynn Reid compilation channel. So she would make compilation videos of different Amberlynn Reid videos, often not oftentimes, always in a parodying way. And then she started making just normal sit-down reaction type videos about Amberlynn Reid and Foodie Beauty, citing her schooling in psychology as why she was a good resource, and why she knew what she was talking about with these two creators. Even when I was deep in the Amberlynn Reid Foodie Beauty reaction realm, Sarah always rubbed me the wrong way. She always made herself come off as better than you, better than them. Oftentimes it was because she had a degree and that she was educated.
Miguel, I'm in med school. I work full time. I have a degree. I have a whole ass beautiful man by my side. I have a family that loves me. We all take care of each other. We love each other. My skin is clear. My makeup is flawless. I am living my best life. My hair is growing. I smell like coconut oil. I am living my best life. And now, I will go further. I will go beyond the superficial, beyond what the eye can see. I am an educated woman. I am an educated immigrant woman who has came here with no language, who is now speaking 2 languages fluently, who has a career, who has ambitions and goals in life. Regardless of the coinage that I make on YouTube of your name, I have a successful life.
Now, as Mika pointed out in her video about herself, I too also have a degree. It's over there somewhere. I don't hold myself to higher standards or higher regards than other people because of it. It's just not a big deal to me. It's like a really expensive piece of paper, essentially. All it really shows is that I went to school and paid too much money to learn about one thing. also liberal studies, and I went for technically 5 years to get it. I'm proud of my degree, and it's an accomplishment that I take pride in just for myself, but I will never think I'm better than anyone who does not have a degree. Another thing that really rubbed me the wrong way about that coconut oil clip, just as an aside, is that she, other than it just being so unnecessary and extra as a whole, the fact that she brought having a family that loves her and that takes care of each other into the conversation. The clip was in reaction to an Amberlynn Reid video, and regardless of what you think of Amberlynn Reid, I think we can all agree that her family life and her upbringing and her childhood was so much less than ideal and was through no control of her own. And so bringing that into an argument like that in such a way that she did just felt cruel and like a low blow that was super unnecessary. Anyways, Sarah has always rubbed me the wrong way, and she was the first reaction channel that I broke up with when I did my mass breakup with the Amberlynn Reid reaction community, and I never looked back. So I didn't even know this video existed until Mika made her video. And so needless to say, when Mika made her video called The Rhetoric of Young Dumb Honey Bun, and brought up this video that we're going to be reacting to today, I was like shocked. I was not expecting it. But what she's saying in this video is so frighteningly similar to what, I'm sorry, there are children playing outside if you can hear them, is so frighteningly similar to what conservative right-wing people say about trans people and the misinformation that they spread about trans people. Before I get into my reaction, when I reached out to Mika, she offered to film a little snippet for this video, because Mika is from Canada, and Canada has some very unique legislatures surrounding trans rights, which is awesome. We need more of that in America. But Sarah continuously misinterprets that legislature in her video and uses it as a reason why she disagrees with what's going on in the video. Since I'm not from Canada, I didn't want to misconstrue anything myself, and so I had an actual living, breathing Canadian with the abilities to properly and accurately research things, because that's what she's going to school for, give her 2 cents on the matter. So Mika, take it away. Also, I just want to say, I think it's hilarious that Mika and I found out we were mutuals because she commented on a Squishmallow in one of my videos like a few months ago, and we were mutual. Like, I'd been following her for like a year and she'd been following me for like a year, and it was really funny how we found out. So I have my Squish in the back here. Also, absolutely go check out Mika's content. I will have everything linked down below, just below the sponsor link. If you like my content, you will love her content. So yeah, anyways, yes, Mika, take it away.
Hi, token Canadian rhetorician here, I guess. For those of you who don't know, my name is Mika. We have a little conversation I want to have with y'all and Megan about kind of the argumentation issue with the sourcing of Sarah's videos and the law particularly that she's referring to, which is Bill C-16, which is an amendment of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms and the human rights legislation in Canada. Beginning with the Bill C-16, if I look this up the same way that she did, this is an amendment specifically of the Human Rights Act of Canada and the Criminal Code. So this is referring to kind of this idea of bringing forth this concept of protected classes. So protected classes, if you don't know, is often associated with race, or people who face particular prejudice under certain circumstances. So all this is doing is including gender identity or expression in what they call an identifiable group, which would mean being able to be put under the protected class. So what a lot of conservatives have done is this idea of people being put in this protected class, this in the case being trans people, as a means of kind of guarding them in a way. So it's like if you misgender them, you're going to go to jail, as if already like crimes like this or actions like this towards protected groups did that at all. Because let's say, for example, race was already a protected class under the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, for example. And if you called someone a slur, you didn't, like, out loud, like in the street or something, you didn't go to jail. Or people who would use these words, like hate speech and those types of things, in these certain settings, were not just, like, instantly going to jail. Because there's still, like, a certain element of free speech in this country, while not defined in the same way as the United States. So there's this idea that conservatives have just taken this and it made it this inflammatory way, as if all it's doing is not just attaching another protected class to the identifiable groups under the Canadian Human Rights Act, and as well as typically the Charter of Rights and Freedoms has the protected classes more clearly outlined. All it's done now is put it under the criminal code so that, like, if you do, commit hate crimes against this group of people because of that, so let's say, like, a domestic terrorist attack on a pride parade or like a celebration of trans rights, for example, that could be deemed a hate crime under that protected class. That's all it's doing. Like, it's just there to, as far as I understand, as somebody who lives in Canada, seen the laws, has done political science courses, and has read on this a little bit, that's what it seems to be. It's not super clear because it hasn't really even been enacted, like, for that long or been used that much. It only came into place about 5 years ago. Or 6 years ago. So it's like you're barking up a tree for no actual reason.
Now, with that amazing context from Mika, let's get into Young Dumb Honey Bun being, in my opinion, transphobic for 15 minutes and 43 seconds. Okay, I am sufficiently scooted over. Let's just get into this situation, shall we?
A transgender teacher wearing huge breast prosthesis under a tight t-shirt in class has sparked controversy online. Kayla lmao, a teacher from Ontario, Canada, began her transition a year ago. However, some parents are confused by the teacher's huge breasts with nipples that are too clearly visible under clothes. In response, the school defended its employee and said it supports Ms. lmao's gender expression.
I just want to say, like, before we get into this whole thing, I do understand that schools have dress codes for everybody. Well, not everybody, women, which is a whole other, like, nuanced conversation in itself. But schools have dress codes, and regardless, cis, trans, or otherwise, those dress codes should be abided by, unless they're ridiculous, like the shorts situation that happened, that was in mine, and, like, the 2-finger, whatever. But, like, I understand how having a teacher walking around with, like, giant bazungas, like, front and center, could be deemed very inappropriate for a school setting. In the kids' interest, it's probably best to keep things more modest. And that's trans, cis, whatever. I just think it makes sense. But you'll find out that this video is, like, not taking that route. It becomes more about the transness of it all. So I just wanted to put that out there, that at face value, like, I understand why parents would be concerned about a teacher dressing this way regardless, but the conversation becomes more about, or all about, the transness, the teacher being trans and all of that, and less about the, like, just dress code aspect of things.
You're having a wonderful, wonderful day. I'm here today to talk to you about a somewhat new issue. This was like in the news like a few weeks ago, maybe a couple of months ago.
Now, to get into the issue with sourcing. Now, people kind of have this idea that maybe, let's say in my video, I commented that the issue with the trans teacher story was that you could only find it on right-wing media, which people are implying that I assume that just because something's not quote-unquote liberal media, that means it's not valid in any way. That's not what it means. A story should be able to be found on multiple points of view. There should be able to be typically something that is researched in a formal setting, such as interviews, widespread news. Then you should be able to find it on maybe something a bit more right or center leaning, and something that's a bit more left leaning. Not only internet-based media or inflammatory right-wing media. And if anybody can come up with, like, let's say inflammatory leftist media, maybe like leftist Twitter, for example, if you wanted to try to think of something, if it was only there, that would also devalue it. What you need to be able to see is a plurality of different viewpoints and different types of media reporting on it. Not only internet media based on the traffic and the attraction that they can have, and only what is considered typically inflammatory right-wing media. If it's only on Fox News as like a televised news source, and only on like weird right-wing things where there's bizarre ads coming up, and you can see that there's an ulterior motive, because let's say, for example, one of the articles says that trans people shouldn't be allowed to teach children and indoctrinate them in their opinions. There is a motive that is being enacted very clearly that is actually not necessarily related to the circumstances at hand, because the message was this teacher's prosthetics are inappropriate. How did it turn into trans people are predatory, and trans people shouldn't be able to indoctrinate our kids? Obviously, that has shifted the media, or shifted the medium, because you've gone from this specific circumstance and this specific person's maybe over-exaggerated expression, if you deem it as such, which even then I would find that debatable, to everybody in this class. So there's a gross overgeneralization. And then, Tucker Carlson is Tucker Carlson, so we don't even need to get into that. As somebody who's Canadian and lives here, you should be able to see it on multiple forms of media. There's nothing beyond very specific niche news or only right-wing news. Why was it not on CBC? Why was it not on CTV? Why was it not on Global News? Why was it not on... There's one that is for Indigenous people, for example. There's... Like, I'm not saying Indigenous people need to report on this, but I'm just saying there's tons of these different channels. Why was it on none of those? Bizarre, right? Would you not... If it was such a huge problem in this country that was plaguing it in the way that these right-wing media and Sarah was describing it, why was it not reported more? It's not out of a fear of backlash, because there weren't even left-wing people defending this. It was hard to even validate if it exists, so that's where your sourcing comes in, right? Can it be seen in multiple places where it's not just doing this motive of denouncing the trans identity? That's where the issue is that she doesn't seem to understand.
And I've had people be like, this is so old, like all of this is old. It's new to me. It's new to me. I have had no idea that any of this was floating around in cyberspace, okay? Give me a break. I'm still interested in all of this. And so, yes, a lot of the things that I'm covering are a little bit outdated, but you don't have to watch it. There's people that are like on top of this stuff like all the time. So I'm just slowly sorting through a backlog of crazy things that I've seen around the internet, okay? So today I'm talking about this, you probably have seen it, news story, these TikTok videos in which the individual who I believe is identifying as trans is where...
She does identify as trans. She does. The news story literally says she does identify as trans. Just say that. Hi, editing Megan here. So before we get into like the meat and potatoes of this video, because I'm like almost done editing this video, I just want to point out that like, yes, we do talk about it towards the end, regarding if this was a hoax or not, and it is talked about that like it could have been a prank, it could have been a hoax, because the person who was acting as the trans woman, I don't know, it's never confirmed nor denied whether or not she is an actual trans woman or it was a hoax, and she was just trying to like prove a point towards like woke culture and whatever. That's another, I haven't found out either way. To me, that doesn't really matter, because regardless of if this was a hoax or not, to try and like go against woke culture or like go against this Canadian bill, I think regardless, when it comes to Young Dumb Honey Bun Sarah and anybody else who's made videos on anybody else who's talked about this topic, going against it, I think it really makes them show their ass, and how they actually view trans women. There's a lot of, I think it just helps further prove the point that, of how hard trans women have it in today's society. And I think it actually kind of yeah, it just proves the point that like TERFs exist and there's a lot of them, and it's really sad. And also, I was just thinking about this when I was editing. What do we say about women, cis women, who get breast augmentations to have boobs that are like the sizes of basketballs? Like, Google woman with big boobs. I can't put examples in here because I feel like I get demonetized. But like, Google woman with big boobs and you'll see what I'm talking about. Like fake boobs. What do we give them the same criticism that we would give a woman doing this in public? Granted, in a school setting it is different, but just in public in general, you know? So regardless of if it was a hoax or not, I really just don't think it did what it was supposed to, because if anything, it just made all the TERFs show their asses and prove the point of how hard trans women have it in society, and how even people who claim to be allies with trans people still don't fully support the trans woman experience because of the common conservative right-wing narrative that trans women in particular are like sexual predators. I hope I'm still getting this right. It's like 12:30 in the morning right now. But yeah, I just want to put that in there. Okay, bye.
In these huge prosthetic breasts. And basically, we're going to be talking about what happened, who this is, what the school said, how did this all come to be, and was it a hoax? And does it matter that it was a hoax, whether or not it was a hoax? Does that make any difference? Let's go. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, there's a Canadian high school teacher who has been recorded multiple times by the students teaching, I think this was woodwork and like tech, with these huge prosthetic breasts. And I mean, they're enormous. They're nothing like I have ever seen. And I watch RuPaul's Drag Race, so that's saying something. This was so incredibly controversial.
Okay, this is where I started to take an issue with the video immediately. Was even like kind of comparing trans women to drag queens is unacceptable. Trans women are not drag queens. Trans women are not men dressed up like women. Trans women are women, and I will die on that hill. I do not care. When you are having the conversation about trans people, particularly trans women, the topic of drag should not be anywhere in it. It just should not. Unless you are talking about like a trans person who does drag, then sure. But if you are trying to compare a trans woman to a drag queen, no, I will not. No, simply no. So that was the first thing that just really like got me going, and so I was like, okay, I'm just gonna keep trucking along and see what else she says, and so now we're here.
Disturbing, because anyone with two brain cells that can rub together can see how incredibly inappropriate this is. More fuel was added to the fire after numerous articles actually reported that the high school that this was happening at said that it was illegal to criticize the teacher because they were trans, and under the new Bill C-16, the Canadian Human Rights Act has explicitly prohibited discrimination based on gender identity and gender expression.
So as Mika said, we know what she just said isn't entirely true. That bill basically just makes trans people a protected group of people in terms of like hate crimes and discrimination and that kind of thing. If this woman were to be fired because she was trans, that would be a problem. But at least to my understanding, that would be a protected thing and she could like create legal action around that. But it's not that she can't be criticized because she's trans, if that makes sense. You're not going to go to jail because you're criticizing a trans person.
Which means that if this person identifies as a woman and they want to express their womanhood in this way, then you are not allowed to criticize it or discriminate against them and, for example, say like, you're not allowed to express yourself in this way. This is, disturbing, or this is inappropriate. You're not allowed to do that anymore. Or at least that's my understanding. You can, feel free to correct me in the comments if you are Canadian, or if you have a better understanding of the bill. But as far as I'm concerned, if this is your gender expression, you are not allowed to be criticized on it. And therefore, essentially, this person was either expressing their womanhood, or they were using a loophole to act out the sexual fantasies in front of children.
This is the second part I had an issue with. Anytime I talk, it's just something I had an issue with. But, so there's already a very common narrative amongst the right-wing conservative group of people that trans women are, for lack of a better word, sexual perverts and predators. Because, God forbid, they want to use the bathroom they identify with. The fact that she's even entertaining the idea that this could be someone acting out sexual fantasies with children is disgusting, and is a message that does not need to be perpetuated any further than it already has been.
In a way, which is what I believe, include the general public, including children, in some kind of sick, twisted kink fantasy.
Oh, and yeah, so she believes that this is what this woman is doing, is acting out a sick, twisted fantasy or kink, and including the general public and children into it. Great narrative to spread about trans women.
A bit, maybe, because there is no way you can convince me that this...
Sarah has 70,000 subscribers, by the way, I think. Let me check. Let me just see. Yeah, she has 78,000 subscribers, so that's cool.
In a way, which is what I believe, include the general public, including children, in some kind of sick, twisted kink, fantasy, whatever it may be. Because there is no way you can convince me that this person genuinely identifies as a woman, respects womanhood, knows what it's about, embodies, a woman and everything that a woman is and can be, and again, just values it and treats it as part of their identity.
So this whole thing reminded me a lot of the narrative that we're seeing from a lot of people, specifically cis het women, on the right-wing conservative side of things, saying that trans women make them feel less validated in their womanhood. And I saw a woman on TikTok who was saying that trans women weren't real women because they can't have kids, and I'm like, what about cis women who can't have kids? Whatever. It just reminded me of that whole thing that we have been seeing so much from particularly the trad wife kind of realm of woman, classically Abby. That's all I can think of right now. Classically Abby, girl defined, those kinds of people on the internet. And which I could make content on them too, because my god, do I have opinions. So let me know if you want that kind of content, because I love doing commentary on this kind of stuff. So if you want it, let me know. I'm over that narrative, because I think what feminists fight for is that there is no one way to be a woman. There's no one right way to be a woman. And this woman is, while I get how it can be inappropriate, how it could be just objectively inappropriate in a school setting, if a cis woman showed up to school like that too, I would expect some backlash. As much as neutralizing boobs would be great, whatever, that's a big hill. I get that. But this woman is expressing womanhood she's expressing her womanhood how she wants to. And I don't think, because it's not what you think should be, or it's not what you think, or how you think womanhood should be expressed, or how you express your womanhood, it doesn't give you the right to say that it's not, and that it's a kink. you know? And so, yeah, this whole narrative just really this comment just really reminded me of the narrative that we're seeing a lot with conservative women and, like, the trad wife kind of people, that they don't see trans women as real women, and that they don't feel trans women value womanhood.
This is, at the very least, a mockery, and at the very best, a full-on offense. Some kind of criminal sexual offense equivalent to flashing.
So again, objectively, I can see how having your breasts on display like that without the consent of others could be deemed inappropriate. Absolutely. But tying it in with the context of this being about a trans woman just doing her best, and alluding to the fact that and saying that you think it is a sexual offense and that it's a kink and that they're getting off on this, it really pisses me off, because this kind of narrative is what makes violent things happen towards trans people. And as far as I know, Sarah had never made a video regarding this kind of topic before. Again, so I was incorrect. Sarah had made one more video, which I haven't watched, so I don't... Actually, she made a couple more. I haven't watched, so I can't give, like, an actual opinion on it, but she had made a video about people identifying as animals, and one called "Expert is Trying to Normalize Pedophilia by Comparing It to the LGBT Community." So I haven't watched those, and admittedly I probably won't. But so she had made videos about this in the past, but I don't really care. Okay, bye. And so I just want to know why she felt the need to do it now, in a time where the narrative surrounding trans people is so volatile. Queer people in general, but trans people in particular. Why? I was gonna be filming a whole bunch of interludes when I was editing this, but whatever. But even if this was a hoax, and it was somebody, like, making a mockery of the LGBTQ community, I don't know why I have this here, it's not even recording anything, and they were just mocking trans people, why would you bring attention? And in regards to her making the video about, like, people identifying as animals and, like, whatever, which, like, I can understand the argument, and I have made this argument in my personal life, that people identifying as anything other than, like, human kind of doesn't help the just, like, normal, quote-unquote normal trans community. But, like, those people are so few and far between, you know? So, like, why would you bring attention to these outliers in our community? Because, as we've seen, the conservative right-wing media and just people on the internet latch on to that, and it makes them think that there are so many of those kinds of people in the LGBTQ community, when really the vast majority of us are just trying to live our lives. But these kinds of people, who are so, like I said, few and far between, make their arguments even stronger. And so they refuse to acknowledge or even try to see that those people are outliers in the community. Whether they could be considered part of this community or not is another conversation. But, like, it just helps the people who are trying to hurt us and try to dehumanize us. It helps push those narratives even more by latching on to these, like, one-off fluky stories. And I just don't think anybody should be giving them more of a platform than they already have. Yeah, it's just really insulting and really infuriating.
Transgender teacher wearing huge breast prosthesis under a tight t-shirt in class has sparked controversy online. lmao, a teacher from Ontario, Canada, began her transition a year ago. However, some parents are confused by the teacher's huge breasts with nipples that are too clearly visible under clothes. In response, the school defended its employee and said it supports Ms. Lemiau's gender expression.
Because honestly, if you just think about this for like 4 seconds, what is the difference between this person's secondary sex characteristics, prosthetics, being unsure like that, and a man doing the same thing, right? With like male secondary sex characteristics, or even a male member unsure. If someone turned up to school, if a man turned up to school with like an entire prosthetic penis, just unsure, like in super tight like leggings or whatever, do you think that would be tolerated? Do you think that would, if the roles were flipped, do you think that the school district would also stick up for them and say, well, this is how he expresses his gender, he expresses his masculinity in this way, and this is protected? Or do you think they would tell him that he's a groomer and he needs to be jailed?
Let alone, you can tell that obviously there's some sort of issue that Sarah has in particular with these characteristics, because she goes in this rant about secondary sex characteristics of this trans woman that she keeps denouncing as well, and says like, well, your secondary sex characteristics are just in your face. Now imagine if someone came in with a prosthetic penis and they had their male member in these tight leggings. So she conflates primary and secondary sex characteristics. She puts in your idea the secondary sex characteristic, which are the breasts in this case, but then conflates it to a primary one for men, because she's trying to do this even narrative, even though she picks a more severe thing for the men. So there's an ulterior motive in the same way. That is why people are having a problem with it, right? It's not well-rounded, because she's not even consistently following the same logical process. So that's my piece on that. And have fun with the rest of the video.
So, okay. So like I've been saying over and over and over again, objectively I can understand why any teacher showing up with this kind of thing on display is an issue for being around kids. I get it. Like, I get that. Sarah's missing that part and is knowingly or unknowingly just spreading so much transphobic rhetoric, drawing the equivalence of that if a man did this, he would be seen as a groomer, to me is her saying that she sees this person as a groomer too, which she's already said. I don't think, from what I've seen, I don't think the school is defending the boobs per se. I think they're defending the teacher's right to express her gender identity as a trans woman. And as we've covered with Mika, criticizing trans people, openly criticizing trans people, is not protected. Like hate crimes against trans people are protected. And that's what that bill is saying. And so it kind of makes Sarah's whole argument against this, with it being like, oh, well, like, nobody can say anything against this person because they'd go to jail, isn't true. And it makes it kind of null and void because she just grossly misunderstood the bill as a whole.
I feel like I know the answer to this. However, this is the internet, and I've seen people literally stick up for NAZIs and also maps. We all know what that means. I've seen people.
Can we not bring into the trans conversation? Can we not do that? As someone who, up until this point, had never made content like this before. Okay, so she did make videos like this before and did talk about, like, pedophilia in the LGBTQ community, but I don't care. Can we just not bring this into this conversation anymore? Because that would just be chef's kiss. Thank you so much. Okay, that would be great, because that's done far too often on the internet and far too often by people with big platforms, and it's just not true.
Do that, so nothing would surprise me at this point. And as we often say on this channel, within any community there's going to be individuals who take it that step further, and then a step further, and then a step further, and a step further, until inevitably they have skewed the entire point of the community and the goal of the community as a collective. And this has been seen across the body positivity movement, the fat acceptance movement, the LGBTQ community. I mean, we've talked about pedos trying to be an extension of the community already.
Yeah, and we don't accept them. We don't, because that's not okay. At least in my realm of the LGBTQ plus whatever the hell, I don't accept maps. I just don't. that doesn't, it's not.
And so I believe that this is almost the same thing. Like, this is an individual who isn't actually trans, labeling themselves as trans so that they can like cheat the system. And
you know what we don't need either, along with bringing in like pedophiles to the conversation? We don't need cis people telling trans people that they aren't trans. We really don't need that. And we don't need cis people telling trans people that they are like sexual perverts. We don't need more of that. There's enough of that to go around, and there's enough of that already to cause trans people to be continually unalived every day. We don't need this. I never thought I'd say this, but stick to making Amberlynn Reid content. Please.
And use the identity in a protective group and be like, oh yeah, I'm one of them, and then do heinous things. That's what I...
So the thing with gender expression and gender identity is it can mean anything to anybody. It's a very fluid thing. It's a very interesting conversation to have with somebody. And I think if you would just, get out of your bubble and maybe have a conversation with an actual trans person, you might think a little bit differently. If you could think, Sarah, for 4 seconds a little bit, maybe critically, about this whole topic and in the context of how the world is right now towards trans people, you might be able to understand why you've gotten so much pushback about this video.
I don't think this is an actual trans person. However, I think to the average transphobe or homophobe, it doesn't really matter, because they'll say, well, this person's a trans person, and they say they are, and in this new world, we have to just believe people on the basis of whatever they say, and therefore, the entire movement is trash.
God forbid you just believe something someone tells you until otherwise is proven. Because I can guarantee you, 99.9% of the time, otherwise will not be proven. So God forbid you just believe people. God forbid you just believe people who are already ostracized so much by society, and just make their lives just a tad easier. God forbid you don't make a video on your platform of almost 80,000 people spewing blatantly transphobic rhetoric.
That's what someone will use. And again, just as they did with the pedophiles who now identify as, an extension of the LGBTQ plus community.
And that's a problem. I'm not saying that's not a problem, but I'm saying it's a minority. We as queer people just want to be seen just as people, But again, 99% of us aren't pedophiles. I would venture to say less than half of a percent of us are, and even then they're not us. There's just so much bullshit in this video. I can't. I'm sorry.
They say, well, we can't choose who we're attracted to, just like, these people can't choose who they're attracted to. So we're the same. We have the same kind of basis. And there's good people among us or whatever else. And they will try and baby step their way into the community. And this is the same thing. There's going to be people who are trying to use this protective group or this status as a protective minority in order to exploit children and in order to exploit the system.
The thing is that bill would not prevent her from being arrested or whatever as a sex criminal. It would just protect her from being fired because she's trans or whatever. So, if they did try to investigate this and found out that yes, she did have nefarious intent behind it, it wouldn't stop her from getting in trouble for it, you know? It's more just saying that she's allowed to express her gender identity in school, and that's okay, and she can't be fired because of it, or be treated violently because of it, like that kind of, to my knowledge.
Lay out whatever kink they had for years in public and have the satisfaction that even when there's a huge uproar, no one's going to do anything because the school is going to stand behind them.
No! If it was found out to be a kink or, like I said, nefarious intent, she could get in trouble for it. It's just she can't get fired for being trans, or she can't be, like, discriminated against in the workplace for being trans. That's it.
Look at what kind of impact that's going to have on the community that just wants to be accepted and recognize that they exist. Like, people who just want to be like, hey, I, was born in the wrong body and I would like to live my life as the person that I truly know I am, and I would just like to live in peace, and that's it. And then you have these people who are like trashing the entire movement.
These people.
And they're going to be like, oh yeah, I'm definitely one of those people too, but I express myself by wearing a huge tit in my face and no one can say anything. That's insanity. That's it. I don't know how this...
It's not that nobody can say anything. It's just she wouldn't be able to be fired for being trans. I'm sure they'd be able to talk to her about, hey, like, parents are having an issue with, like, how you're dressing. Not in a way that, like, they're having issues with you expressing your gender identity. It's just, like, the way you're dressing isn't appropriate for school. Like, they could have that conversation with her, I feel like.
Now, aside from the fact that somewhere on the internet, you will 100% be called a bigot and a transphobe for even questioning this person's identity, for even questioning the minority, majority, belonging status quo, and already, just even just asking questions.
It's not even you just questioning it, it's the shit you're saying along with questioning it, Sarah, that makes me think that you are a transphobe.
Is nowadays wrong. Can we just take a second? Even asking questions about an already established, almost like an ideology, is already wrong. Like, you're not allowed to do that. You can't do that. And so there's a lot of people who don't have answers or who think a different way. They're not allowed to say it. And they're scared to say it. And I'm not surprised.
Probably because it's wrong and it could be harmful to people. Do you ever think about that? And by wrong, I mean like just objectively wrong.
So much backlash nowadays. I mean, people are getting cancelled left and right for things they've said 10 years ago. And sometimes it's right and sometimes it really isn't. And so it's just incredible to me. Let's just take a step back before we go on to discuss whether or not this was true and whether or not it matters, and talk about the fact that biological women who couldn't control the size of the breasts, for example, who didn't have that, luxury to just take them off and leave them at home.
That is not a luxury. Let me tell you, okay, there's something to be said about what trans women have to go through to be seen by society as a woman. It's a lot of pain. It is a lot of work. Let me tell you, it's a lot of fucking work. And I know trans people in my personal life, and it is a lot of work. Being assigned female at birth and identifying as a woman is the luxury. Being able to take your boobs off at the end of the day because you have to wear them to feel affirmed in your identity is not a luxury. So let's not say that either, okay? Being a cis woman, being assigned female at birth and identifying with the gender you were assigned at birth, that's the luxury.
I've been fired before for dressing inappropriately, for dressing too, sexy, for being too sexy because they can't control what the body looks like.
Yeah, and that's, like, a whole other conversation, but, like, in regards to that, like, I can understand that. Like, there is a way that you should dress around kids. There is a way that you should present yourself around kids. And I get that, and I get why that just objectively, just alone, could be an issue. But what this is being twisted into is, oh, she's trans, so nobody can talk about it. That's not the case either. And yeah, I get maybe having to talk to a teacher, male, female, cis, trans, whatever, about how they're dressing at school and it not being appropriate for being around kids. I get that. I'm not saying they should not talk to her. I'm just saying this should not become a anti-trans issue. That's what I've been trying to say this whole time. I'm gonna go let my cat out of my bedroom.
No matter what they wear, the boobs are bigger or the bum is bigger, so it's gonna lay a certain way. And I mean, women have been facing that for centuries.
Yes, we have, and I'm not denying that.
Literally, you can have one girl, one woman, one female individual who has, smaller breasts than another, and they can wear the same thing, and one of them is going to be inherently sexualized and the other one isn't. I can wear super tight tops and not put a bra on, and no one even bats an eyelid, but I know
I'm not denying any of this, by the way.
Friend who's, for example, I don't know, an F size, she can't do that. She doesn't have that luxury because people will look at her and say, you're dressed inappropriately, but they'll look at me and be like, no, she's fine, just because of things that they can't control. Right? Because of things that women can't control a lot of the time, unless you get like breast reduction surgery. But for what? Unless it's for like health reasons, are you supposed to get it because people think a certain way of you, because people can't control themselves, because people think that just you simply existing and wearing a top is too much and you have to hide it? It's insane to then have to look at a person like this who's under protective rights because that's the gender expression.
I get this. I can understand where this is coming from. And like I said, this could be a valid criticism of anybody. But it doesn't need to become an anti-trans like case study, It could have just been handled and not been taken on by right-wing conservative media as an anti-trans piece. And you did not have to bring it on your platform.
Clearly a mockery. It's clearly someone literally being like, I can do whatever I want and you can't do anything about it.
I have big boobs. I'm like a D cup. Like, I have pretty big bazungas, okay? And I get it. And I've accepted the fact that I might have to dress a certain way in different situations to not be sexualized. That is a thing. It's an unfortunate part of our society and just the over-sexualization of women as a whole. That being said, trans women are over-sexualized, I would argue, more than cis women are. Take how cis women are over-sexualized by everybody, multiply that by 10, and that's how trans women are sexualized. They are fetishized, it's bad, and they're not just seen as women by a lot of people, and it's really, really, really sad. But yeah, I understand. I have to wear a bra. I have to dress certain ways in certain situations, and that's it. It sucks. Not great. But yeah. But turning it into they are doing it, she's doing it because she gets off on it and is a kink and is a sexual predator is absolutely unnecessary.
And so for these women who have been fired or who have been suspended to now look at this person and go, are you serious? I feel like it's just such a smack in the face. I honestly do. Now, I want to talk about, was this fake? Was this a hoax? And does it matter? So in another article, basically they say that, I think this was...
And I will say, I have heard that this was a hoax as well. So, whatever. I personally don't think it matters because I think it really showcases the narrative surrounding trans women as a whole and how, the negative narrative surrounding trans women and how people just refuse to understand, refuse to accept them as women, and how a lot of people only see them as sexual predators and groomers.
4chan or some other anonymous forum. Apparently, one of the students who's actually in this person's class said that this was just a prank, right? This was all just a prank. This was all a ruse. We got you. And this person's actually anti-woke, and they were basically showing you how ridiculous the entire thing is. 1, I don't believe that for a second. 2, if it is true, then this person literally just got caught and it sounds like they went, that wasn't a fetish, that was a prank. Yes, that was a prank. That wasn't real. Well, you thought that was real? No, I was making a huge socio-political statement. Can you see my dog? It was just a prank. It was just a prank. It was just a prank. It was all just a prank. It's all good because it was just a prank. So now my opinion is that, first of all, I don't think that this was a prank. I think that person wanted to do this and use the anti-wokeness like mindset, I don't know, to make it okay. That's what I think. I think that they wanted to do it, so they did it. Second of all, even if that was the goal, I mean, they achieved it. They showed a flaw in the system, right? Not everyone who just says, hey, this is what I want to do, should be doing it, because by going so viral, they gave a heads up and a green light to all the other weirdos out there who might want to exploit the system, pretend to be part of the trans community, use that label and use that identity to in some way exploit someone, or in some way exploit.
Just the term all the other weirdos is extremely alarming to me, because it makes it seem like there's just this mass population of people who just like want to pretend to be trans to like live out their like sexual fantasies and like their perversions and stuff. No! All of like the great majority of trans people are trans. They are not sexual perverts. We don't need to be creating this like false hysteria. We just don't. And that's what this is doing.
A group of people. Clearly, it has gone undetected. Clearly, people were like, yeah, good. Like, you know, a green light for you. You can go ahead and do it in our school district because we don't care. And
nobody's saying you can dress like you can dress how might be deemed inappropriate in a school setting. Nobody's saying that. They're just saying you can be trans in a school setting. And that we're gonna support you and protect you. That's it.
It doesn't matter if it was a prank, in my personal opinion, because these children still had to go to school seeing a professor or lecturer or a teacher wearing huge plastic breasts with huge nipples on them. It's not funny. It's still traumatic. I would not want my child seeing that, ever. Whether that was part of a play, whether that was part of a protest, whether that was part of some kind of movement, I don't want to see it, and I don't want my child to see it. These children who refused to go to school over it still missed out on their education because they didn't want to be around that. Those children were also still put in danger because that plastic ass wig could have caught on fire, or, I don't know, be caught in some kind of machinery and...
I did not get to this part. Fuck that, dude. No, if she wants to wear a wig, she can wear a wig. Fuck that, dude.
To a terrible accident. Because this is just basic health and safety. And so in my opinion, it doesn't matter if it was a prank.
Yeah, maybe clip it up or something for your safety and for the kids' safety, but like, she can wear a fucking wig. Fuck off with that. Sorry, I'm getting angry now.
If it was some kind of a statement. I think if they were making a statement, one, they failed because all they did was fuel this hate towards the trans community, one. And two, show other weirdos out there that may want to do this, that it's okay and they will be protected. And they can go ahead and do that and play out the sick, kinky, public fetish fantasies because they can just say like, oh yeah, this is how I identify, so you can't do anything about it. So I think it's terrible either way. I also think that it's terrible on the kids who had to either miss school or witness that. So to me personally, I don't care if it's a prank or not. I think it was absolutely ridiculous and I think it's insane that it was allowed. But let me know what you think, I guess. That is everything that I have for you guys today. Please let me know what you think.
Okay. That's the end of the video, and honestly, I think I've said all I have to say on this, and I'm just angry. This video makes me really angry. It's extremely unnecessary. She did not have to talk about it. She should just stick to her normal reaction content, which is something I never thought I would say, but if it keeps her from making this bullshit, then yeah, she should just stay with that. She should just, like, stay in that lane, you know, because this was just, like, 15 minutes of right-wing conservative transphobic rhetoric as told by Sarah, as told by young dumb honey bun. And it helps nothing. It fixed nothing about the situation. This was very old news. And like I've been saying, I understand how dressing a certain way in like a school setting can be inappropriate, and that's something to have a conversation about. But turning this into an anti-trans, transphobic kind of conversation is completely unnecessary and just shouldn't have been done by any media source involved. Maps, kink, drag queens, any of those kinds of, not that drag queens are related to the other two, but like there are just certain things that you should not bring into the conversation surrounding trans people and trans women in particular, and she brought all of them into this. And I would implore her to just like go read some articles on the problem with lumping in the ideas of maps and kink and whatever into the trans conversation. I would just implore her to like use her degree and do that research. Anyways, that's all I have to say on this video. This is a very different topic for me to talk about. I talk about it a lot in my personal life. I don't talk about it a lot on here, but I would like to if you want me to. I have done a lot of research on it myself, and so yeah. Thank you so much to Wren for sponsoring this video. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Thank you to Mika for helping me out on this video. And let me know what you think in the comments. Yeah, and all the GoFundMe links to the relating to the Colorado Springs incident will be down below. And yeah, sorry this got a little feisty, but this kind of stuff just really pisses me off. Anyways, be kind to yourself, be kind to others, drink your water, take your meds, and I will see you in the next one. I love you all so much. Bye.